Welcome to Smart and Savvy Unedited. I'm Debbie Davis. With me is Demi Kazunas.
Hi, how are you?
Carrie Baker.
Hello.
Girls, we have a fun thing to do. We're going to talk about our memory today. You know, you walk into a room, you forget about why am I here? You can't find your keys. You forget, I know you. I worked with you for years. What is your name? You know?
Right.
So here's the top 5 ways to increase your memory or boost your memory power. First is to chew some gum. Seriously, in one study, researchers discovered that participants who chew gum throughout a battery of memory and attention tests scored nearly 25% higher than those who did not.
All I'm going to say is it better be with xylitol and not with sugar, please, folks.
Oh, dear.
From a dentist point of view, chew gum, but it's got to be xylitol and not for a long period of time, just a little bit.
Well, they should allow it in school then, right?
Well, they are.
It boosts your memory. Are they?
No, there are some teachers. My son is in the Falmouth school system here in Maine, and there are certain teachers that allow them to chew gum, and I don't know if it's because they know something that we didn't know. Or, you know, it just, maybe, I don't know, but they allow it in school.
Well, the study authors suggest that chewing gum leads to increases in the blood supply to the brain, and this can boost your memory and give you better performance.
Well, I'm a gum chewer, so I'm very happy with
There you go.
hearing about
I like
this.
it. Okay,
Great.
the second one's kind of crazy. It's move your eyes from side to side. They say in one study, they found participants who moved their eyes from side to side for just 30 seconds each morning. They performed an average of 10% better on recall tasks later on. So before you get out of bed, you do this crazy thing.
And also with anxiety. It also helps with anxiety. Psychologists for years have said if you have this horrible thought you can't get out of your head, move your eyes left to right, just for a couple of seconds, and you'll notice that you feel a little bit better.
No
It
kidding.
actually works.
I do that all the time to my husband. I look at him through the side of my eyes. If I don't have my coffee, he knows to give it to me. Here's, honey. Here's your coffee, honey.
And we're not talking about rolling your eyes. We're just saying side to side. So, yeah, I've heard it.
Interesting.
I love it. The next one is take a quick power nap. The next time you're facing a tough test or work project, try taking a quick power nap before. Those who napped just 45 to 60 minutes before a memory test saw a 5-fold improvement in performance.
Wow.
5-fold. That's pretty good.
Oh, that's amazing.
So next time you need an excuse for a quick nap, just let people know, hey, I'm just boosting my memory
Not during the
power.
test, before.
Yes, before the test. The next one is fun. It's clench your fists. But it's interesting. For right-handed people, you're going to clench your fist when you're learning something. So if you're learning a word test, clench your fist. Or better yet, hey girls, grab one of these.
Woohoo!
They're clenchy balls. Just kind of do this. Okay. Learning my word test, and then when you want to recall, you switch to the other hand. So if you're right-handed, you're going to start with your right hand.
That
If
stimulates your left brain. That's the memory part.
You're going to start with your left hand. Yeah. But so when you're learning it, you do your right hand.
memory.
When you want to recall it, you do your left hand.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Because your left side of your brain hemisphere stores the memory capacity.
Exactly. And it links the hemispheres of the brain, and that's
And
what
if you're
happens.
left-handed, you do the opposite.
Exactly,
right?
if you're
Okay.
left-handed.
Don't laugh if I'm doing this during this
You know what?
telecast.
I'm going to too. The other one is what your mother always told you. Write it down. Here you go, girls.
Interesting.
Write it down.
This is exciting. We have props today.
Yes. Now, they did a study where UCLA did a study where they had people write down notes in the class and then people take notes on their laptop. Now, the people who took notes on their laptop obviously took more notes
Right.
but the people who retained it and understood it better were the people who wrote it
Wrote it
down.
down.
Again, I think
No
that goes to what part of your
kidding.
brain you're using when you're using
Exactly.
certain.
So I
Very
thought that was
interesting.
quite fun, good information, because we're all aging here in the state of Maine.
Oh, no, we're not.
We need all the help we can get. And I'm learning.
That's really
I'm learning.
fascinating. It's fantastic.
Wow, thanks.
We are going to
Wonderful.
come back with our community segment right after this. Welcome back to Smart and Savvy Unedited. This is our segment 2 called Community. We're talking with Diane Madden. She is a Director of Marketing and Development at St. Andre Home in Biddeford. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
St. Andre Home on their site says it was started on Easter Sunday in 1940 by the Good Shepherd Sisters of Quebec. Since then, St. Andre Home has offered experience, knowledge, and personal guidance to women, children, and families. Tell us what you do at St. Andre.
So one of the things that we've really been focusing on the last few years is we were mostly known for our homes for women who, were homeless and pregnant. And so with some funding changes, and loss of funding changes, we've had to kind of retool what we do. So, but also stay within our mission always. That's, serving women, children, and families. So one of the things that we did is open a new Center for Parenting and Play last year. And actually this is our 1-year anniversary this Friday. We're having a big birthday party.
Oh, fantastic.
And that's at 11 Adams Street, right beside the courthouse. And that's been one of our major programs, and it's really given us a chance to consolidate all our children's services into one place. So we do parenting education, we do supportive visitation, child-parent psychotherapy, counseling. It's a really great space. There's a beautiful playroom. It really is a great way for our clinicians to work with parents and children, therapeutically. So that's one major piece where we've retooled what we do. We still have our adoption program that's been longstanding for many, many years. And we also have one residential home for homeless pregnant women, which we've just recently renamed Starling Place. So we're really going through kind of a rebranding of that right now, and there's still a big need. A lot of women, getting them off the streets, helping them have a successful pregnancy, and then helping them get stable housing, and then really following them even after that. So it just doesn't end right there.
You're all about lifting up those in
We
need.
are, and that's really what the Good Shepherd Sisters have done for all these years. I mean, back in the 1800s, they came down from Quebec, as you mentioned, and their thing was all about helping, women in need. And they were very successful, even working in prisons up in Quebec. And in fact, so much so that leads right into the next thing I was going to tell you about, and that is our home for survivors of human trafficking called Hope Rising. And I think the last time I was on here, we were raising money with the Steve Azar concert last winter, which you were a big part of helping
was so
us.
much fun.
Thank
So
you.
much
You and Ray
fun.
Richardson. That was a lot of fun. And actually Steve Azar is my new favorite singer now. Of
course.
He's kind of replaced John Bon Jovi, which is huge if you ask my kids.
Well,
So anyway, I don't know. But he's just great. And Steve Azar, the reason we brought him here, he had a great connection with a lot of law enforcement here in our state, a personal friend of many law enforcement individuals, especially Steve Webster from South Portland. And so Steve Azar actually wrote a song about human trafficking, and there's another whole story that we talked about last time about that. But this song that he wrote really went crazy. I mean, it's a great song, and it really was a great central theme for this fundraiser that we had for Hope Rising. So since I last saw you, we have renamed our program to Hope Rising, and so this home for survivors of human trafficking was really came about as a result of the Good Shepherd Sisters. One of them, Sister Maureen Egan, about 3 or 4 years ago, saw one of the videos of the children over in Southeast Asia being trafficked, and we've all seen those on, 60 Minutes, and Nightline and everything. But
Unimaginable.
it's really disturbing. And so she was like, it really, piqued their interest. And then they heard about the fact that, people weren't really talking about it, but there was more and more in the news about, there were actually a couple of cases here in Maine where some women disappeared and they ended up finding out that they'd been trafficked. And so anyways, a lot of research went into this to find out what is the situation here in Maine. And they came to the conclusion they wanted to focus their efforts more on that. And that's where some of us came in. My director, Reacher, and I, and the director of Hope Rising, Carrie Nason, we've been working really hard to network with partners and raise money, and we wrote a grant to the Next Generation Fund Foundation a year ago, and we received, actually it's been almost a year since we received $400,000 from them.
That's fantastic.
Which really, was amazing. That allowed us to repurpose a building that we owned in the middle part of the state into this home for survivors of human trafficking. And so we've named it Hope Rising. It's a very uplifting place. It's beautiful. We are just very proud of it. It's been a real community statewide effort. I mean, there's been folks from all over the state that have really, just opened up their pocketbooks, helped us, get the bedding that we needed, the clothing. There's some major, corporations here in our state that have just been really very supportive. Because the women, when they get there, they don't have anything.
Well, what is the situation that's happening that requires such a home?
So what happens is the sex trafficking is really, there's human trafficking, and it's really sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Now, labor trafficking has an equal amount of craziness. We aren't really working in that sector as much. We're really working with women that have been sex trafficked. And, there has no socioeconomic boundaries. People, it's not just, it just doesn't. I mean, it could, young girls, 12 to 14 are really pretty much, a lot of them are targeted, and that's really the age that many of these women have come into this life. They call it being in the life, and I've met so many amazing survivors, and listening about it, it's a culture unto itself, hard as it is to believe. I mean, it's you see the movies like Taken with Liam Neeson, and you see that kind. Well, that's one aspect, girls that are from other countries being shipped and trafficked to other countries. Some that are tricked, and that's another big the I mean, even that we even hear from some of our partners in Homeland Security, because that's who we work closely with. That's how the women get placed in our home, is through those routes. Right. And just hearing about young men who they could be the same age as your high school daughter, and suddenly they're in a romantic relationship, dating and everything, and they actually are targeting these girls, and they pretend that they're like, to everyone else, it's like their boyfriend for 6 months, and suddenly it's a switch flips, and they, it's been this grooming process, getting the trust and getting them to do what they want, and suddenly, the tables are turned, and the man will, demand the girl, do whatever he wants her to do, and usually it's, having sex with other people, and usually and for money, and blackmailing them. Sometimes they threaten with that they videotape them and that they'll put it out on YouTube. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that they do that. It's crazy. And then there's the other side of the coin, where there's young children in our state who are being sexually exploited, and that's another whole paradigm that one of my dear friends, Catherine Mossman, she's actually a survivor. She just started a new nonprofit called Stop Trafficking Me to really educate parents, children, teachers, and really working a lot with high school students to really help them learn more and educate their younger peers about these situations that come up. I mean, we all hear about cyber stalking all the time on computers. You have this, you can imagine a split screen. You have a man on one side, this big fat man. That's my analogy. That's on one side pretending he's 16, and on the other side, you have this young girl who's 12, who's vulnerable, and they know where to find them. They find the person that's maybe not, maybe not as popular, not have a lot of confidence. I mean, these guys are slick. They know who to target, and it's But the good thing is there's a lot of work being done here in our state, and there's a big conference actually coming up next week, the Governor's Summit on Human Trafficking. So we're really excited. I'm actually going to that. We have folks from all over the country coming. The governor of Ohio is coming. They've done a lot in their state around human trafficking. So it's a good way for anybody interested in that topic, to learn about how they can get involved and about some of the best practices going on.
Are you thinking about expanding Hope Rising? Are you looking for, is that a goal or?
Well, right now it's really.
Are you full?
We are full, yeah. Right now we.
How many is full?
Well, for us, we took 5 women in June, and they were referred to us through Homeland Security. Some came from jail. If you talk to Meg Elam, she'd tell you that a lot of times they have to arrest these girls just to get them in a safe place. But we've had 5 women, and we're really excited because most, or actually I think most of them had drug issues when they come in. So, there's that whole first phase where, they have to detox off of the drugs. Many are on Suboxone, which is a very expensive drug. We're really fortunate. A major healthcare system came forward, St. Joseph's Healthcare, and offered free care to all of our clients, which was
wonderful.
huge. Yeah, it's just amazing. They just feel it's the right thing to do.
Fantastic.
So they've sent clinicians on site to work with our clients, and they're all, I should say, they're all 18 and over. That's what our license allows us to work with these women. And they've been there actually almost 6 months. We're really excited because, it's almost kind of unheard of results.
Right.
Usually, a lot of these girls will, go in and out of these kinds of programs many times before they can just really kind of focus. And, I give kudos to our director, Carrie Nason. She interviews each girl, and they've got to really want to do this. It's hard work. Every day is structured 8 to 5. They have group sessions, individual life skills. There's a lot of accountability, and we're almost, as I say, almost 6 months in. They've all done. We've been able to offer them equine therapy. They've all taken Reiki. They've all done their first level Reiki training. They've done some amazing things. We had a woman in there last week to teach them sewing, and now we just got a grant from the Maine Community Foundation to hire a vocational coordinator, career coordinator, to go in and work with them and try to help them pick up where they left off and get out into the community. So 3 of them are actually going back to school. 2 of them are taking college courses right now. The 3rd one's getting her GED. One of them wants to continue her studies as a beautician, so we're trying to help find funding to pay for her tuition.
Diane,
So,
I think over the weekend we heard that there was a national sting that occurred. My understanding is through Mexico, where a lot of the trafficking is occurring of these young girls. I should say young children, because young boys can be trafficked also.
Right.
And so we're now hearing that that is part of the whole immigration, where these kids are coming in, but coming in illegally to be trafficked.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything? Or do you have a lot of people in Maine that are actually Hispanic that are coming from these countries? Are you hearing about this at all?
Personally, I haven't been, but I know that I've heard a little bit about it at some of the meetings I've been at. It's a real issue, and there again, these children are tricked. They're coming from basically nothing, and with the promise of better lives, or a lot of times they're promised physical things too, like clothing, or just things that they don't have, and it's got to be better than what they have.
Right, coming from nothing.
But yeah, it's
food.
exactly.
And how about the heroin epidemic here in Maine? Has
Yep.
that also added to this whole thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's huge. That's one of the ploys, and I'm glad you mentioned that the traffickers use, is getting these girls drug addicted, because then then they've got them. They can regulate. They get them to do what they want them to do by holding off on the drugs.
And heroin is cheap.
Yep.
Cheap, and
Yep.
scary.
So they
It
keep them
is.
drugged up, locked up.
Yep.
And
Yep, and they fear for
Imagine
their
they-
lives, and
Yeah.
it's the Stockholm syndrome too. If you talk to a lot of them,
Right.
it's not like there's bars on the walls,
Right.
and
Right.
and they could be even out in plain daylight, but it's that they're
Programmed.
yeah, they're
They've been
programmed.
demeaned so much. that-
Exactly, and they threaten their families. It's just you can't even imagine.
Who would have thought here in Maine, right? Who would
Yeah.
have thought
who'd have
this
thought
is
in the
li-
U.S.?
In the U.S., yeah.
Well, and who would have thought that even here in our state that children are being trafficked?
Right.
I mean, it's not a huge numbers. The numbers that are huge are the number of children that are just being exploited. I mean, I'm talking very young children, and you wouldn't think that's happening in Maine, but it's a conversation people really need to start having because it's kind of the dirty little secret that people just sort of kind of fluff over. But
Well, if it's happening here, that means it's happening everywhere.
it is.
I mean, that is just
It's just really
hard to- it
horrible.
It could be the kid,
Imagine.
the family next door.
Exactly.
And you might suspect something's not right, but well, you don't know, and this and that.
Right.
And we need to be educated as a population to know what signs to look for.
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of us. Could you just for the last few minutes
Sure.
here, just tell us what we should be looking for if we suspect something is not right? Maybe the neighbor next door or the child down the road. What would you be looking for?
Well, we often tell, one of the people we're trying to educate more are the beauty industry. So, for instance, hairdressers, there's been a fair amount of work to educate them to that if a man brings a young girl in and says, hey, make her look beautiful or something, and this has happened actually up in Lewiston, there's a couple of cases of this. Yeah, they usually what they'll do is they'll take them in and try to make them look older. So they'll take them to a beauty place.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's very
And
interesting.
then recently I read about been some work among airline workers, stewardesses and stewards, to kind of recognize a girl that is maybe traveling with an older man and it just doesn't look right. Just trying to just try to look for those situations, or somebody who's just not acting acting oddly around like a man or something like like if you're at a truck stop or something that just doesn't look right. I mean,
shopping.
there's shopping. I mean, there's the truckers. There's all. There's the best place to go for more information, I would say, is Google the Polaris Project, and there's some
Polaris.
great information there, and also the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. So if you type that out, there's actually a hotline, and that's what we tell everybody. We put it on everybody puts it on their websites. MICASA is an advocacy organization here in Maine that's really a clearinghouse for a lot of human trafficking information. So it's the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and so they're kind of a clearinghouse, and everybody directs people to go to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. And I think it's like 1-800-BE-FREE or something like that. But that's where you can really there's some great bullet points about what to look for out in the community, And it's really important that even like teachers look at that, because, they're seeing this, they could be seeing this in their classroom, somebody
Right.
that's, because a lot of them are going to school and they're still being, trafficked. So,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never thought.
Yeah.
I would never even realized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Diane, good gosh. StAndreHome.org
Yes.
for more info.
Yes. Absolutely.
And we wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
Great
Thanks for
work.
having us on.
I'm so
Excellent
impressed
work.
with the
Thank
program
you.
you've got. Hope Rising. We wish those girls all the best.
Thank
do.
you. Yeah.
We'll keep them in our prayers and thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Very much so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we will be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Smart and Savvy Unedited. Wasn't that a great segment, everybody? And if you'll notice, we're wearing a little special, a little special ribbon now.
For
Tell us
human,
what it is.
it's basically a little ribbon that even I hear Governor LePage has,
Yeah.
and it's a ribbon for human trafficking, which I have to tell you, I thought I knew about it, and I was so educated. Diane Madden did a fabulous job, and I got to be honest with you, it's going to make me be much more aware about it and keep my eyes open, and I hope all our viewers out there do the same. These young girls, I mean, it's a long way out of this horrible situation, and so, you know, kids have a hard enough time growing up in this world not to be trafficked on top of that.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
Fabulous,
sure.
she's great.
And let me just say one more thing. You know, a lot of these programs that you have to help people are usually 30 days long, 2 weeks, 30 days. This seems to be for as long as you need it.
Yeah.
And that is so comforting, I'm sure, to them.
Yes.
You know, that they're actually going to be able to go and relearn how to live. And that's important.
I can't imagine. I mean, raising a daughter, and she's 31 now, but to have her go through something like that, I can't possibly imagine
Yeah, I
that
know, I know.
situation. So horrors.
Well,
agree.
we are going to talk with Carrie about the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, yes, our favorite topic, otherwise known as Obamacare.
Updates for employers.
You know, I'm not going to get into the weeds because I don't want everybody's eyes to roll back in their heads.
Yes, because it's a
When you
topic
start
that we
talking
can.
about insurance nuances and regulations. But the reason I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and I never did disclose this in any
Right.
of our other shows, but I retired as an insurance benefit broker. So I was very much involved and entrenched in working with all of our employer communities, my clients, and their health care benefits. And back in the day, I even flew to, before the law was clandestinely passed, and I don't say that tongue-in-cheek, it really was. To this day, I'm sorry, an atrocious way to pass such a giant piece of legislation. But I did try to make a difference, because if I'm going to try to make a difference, I better do something. So I did fly to Washington, D.C. with a very small handful of local brokers to try to help effect change to the whole the law that they were trying to craft, the law prior to the law that got passed,
Right.
the one that Nancy Pelosi said, we've got to pass this law to find out what's in it. We really had some great ideas. Some of them actually did make it through and are in the law. So I just want you to know that's my background. I retired as a benefit broker February 13th of this year, 2015. And for many reasons. It was time, it was a great industry, great business, but I was staying up at night worrying about this law. And when personal things happen in my life that were definitely, you know, better reasons not to get sleep, I was staying up worrying about clients and worrying about the regulations, which just kept coming on a weekly basis.
Right.
And the big thing about 2016 that we were all worried about in the industry was for the small employer
Right.
versus large employer change. The law had stated that in 2014, they were going to allow the states to change the modeling as to what constituted large employer compared to small employer. And in Maine, we have a lot of employers that have 50 employees.
Right.
Those are considered large employers
Right.
in terms of the kinds of insurance plans and the plan designs they could offer their employees. And the large group employer plans were much more forgiving, much more creative, not canned plans.
Really?
Oh, very much so. Very different.
So the bigger you are, the better you got.
The better, well, the more, yes.
The better you got to choose from.
Choose from.
Right.
But back before the Affordable Care Act, the small group plans
Right.
were also very robust and very good. But because they forced
the heart
insurance,
right out of
well,
them?
they forced insurance companies to include what we call the essential benefits. All plans had to look the same, be the same. It made it crazy. I mean, it took away a lot of the creativity in plan design.
Right.
They wanted everything to look the same in the small group market because they wanted the small group market plans to mirror eventually what you see on the marketplace, or what we sometimes call the exchange. So 2016 was the time that if your state opted out of changing the large small group rating,
Right.
they could wait until 2016, and at that point in time, then a small group would be 100 or less employees.
Okay.
So for those employers that were offering these really nice, rich 50 to 100, plans
Right.
that were creative and lower deductibles and better plans,
Right.
well, they would no longer be privy to those plans, and they were worried about having to move to these canned plan designs. That was a big thing for employers, and many of the employers. And the good news was 3 weeks ago, of course, they always wait till the very last minute,
Of course.
the insurers, and I've got to give the insurers that do business in the state of Maine their kudos, because they listen, they know the marketplace, they listen to the broker community, they listen to the employers who said, this is not good timing. We don't want to give up our plans. And I think that as a nation, I think the entire political segment, including the private sector, are very surprised that so many small employers decided to continue to offer benefits. So here we have a lot of employers this size that opted to continue offering benefits.
Interesting.
And so now one of those the worries are gone. They are going to extend it 1 to 2 years of being able to keep those plan designs.
But sooner or later,
Yeah, it depends, but sooner or later maybe things will change and they won't have to get rid of them.
So I'm one of the employers. I have 30 employees.
Yes.
I give 100% medical insurance to all my employees, and we were able to grandfather and
Yes.
keep what we have.
They call it grandmothering too.
oh, do they?
Grandmothering, yes.
Grandmothering too,
Yes.
but I've been told by our insurance agent that we probably have another 1 or 2 years.
That's it.
At which point, you see all the problems that are going to happen to the big companies are not going to start happening to us, including we're going to have to age weight it. In other words, the insurance rates might go up because the average age of my office might be high. Also, I'm hearing now it might be weight, some
goodness.
medical issues, like if you're a diabetic, or if you're overweight, or if you're a smoker. Because now most people who are insured are also, their medical information is out there to be looked at by the insurance company. And so I may end up going from 100% coverage for my employees to just giving them X amount of money, and then they can shop for their own insurance, and I guarantee you they will never get that full coverage that I've been able to offer up to now. And this is what Obamacare has done to a company like mine, who's been always providing insurance to all their employees.
Before the Affordable Care Act came along, you said something that triggered, and the other thing that was another good, something that was at least pushed down the road a year or two, and that was how the insurance companies rate these small groups. So I was still in the business when we had to actually implement the change in how an insurance company would rate your employee base.
My pool, yeah.
So if you were small, considered a small employer, it was going to be individually rated. So they would have a rate chart for every age, and your oldest employee his rate, he or she's rate, was going to be 3 times the rate of the youngest employee's rate. And they were going to give you these rates, and then it was your choice as to how you were going to serve this up to your employees. And it was, crazy. You can imagine. I mean, some of them created their own composite rates. Some of them did just share the discrepancy and said, we're just giving a defined contribution.
Right.
For those of us who are of that age that, we were one of the older folks, we were, feeling a little...
Like $700 for insurance?
well, we had one that was at $1,200 compared to,
100 or something.
Yeah, it was huge discrepancies.
Right.
So that the insurers actually decided this year for 2016 not to do that. They were going to provide what we call composite rates, which always blended the age factor within a company, always did. But the community rated market, the small market, you weren't hit so hard for the older person and the youngest person. It was blended into a big giant, they spread the risk between the risk pool.
Right.
So you weren't hit as hard.
Right.
This was, mind-boggling for employees to have to look at this and know that the age of each employer and their dependent each dependent was also given a rate. So that they have now all agreed. Every insurer in Maine has agreed not to do that this way. It was so ill-received. It wasn't
Carrie,
well
do
received.
you think that all of this is basically to fund a system that's not working, which is Medicare, Medicaid? Do you think that this was where the money's going to? Because insurances are getting more and more expensive. The costs have not been dropped. We're
Right.
not getting better coverage. We may be getting, we've eliminated the pre-existing, and that's cool. You know, I
Yeah, but
think
that's one thing.
one thing, and the truth be known, if you had no lapse of coverage, you never would have had to deal with it anyways. But why is it like, I mean, it's like 20, from last year to this year, my insurance, I'm still paying 100%, but eventually I won't be able to, 23%, and I haven't lost any employees. It's the same.
23%. So,
Why 23%?
well, in Maine, it depends on it. They look at the overall health of the risk pool of everybody, and they attach these rates to it. And we all know that we live in an unhealthy state and a very low population. And we don't have a large population from
Right,
which to
right.
blend all these rates together. So as we keep losing young people in the state of Maine, our health picture is going to get worse and worse because it's just leaving us as, you know, I think we are the oldest state in the United States.
Yes,
I think
we
we
are.
beat Florida.
Yeah.
So that is not a good sign for a state that wants to be fiscally healthy, responsible, you know, have a tax base
Economically
of,
sound.
yes, that has people contributing because they're all leaving, and it just leaves the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a broader problem in Maine. The other thing is we have to remind that one of the things that's happening with the Affordable Care Act is that there were many of the penalties, the employer penalties, the individual penalties, the Cadillac tax, which is probably not going to be there because you have Democrats and you know, the presidential candidates wanting to get rid of it because the unions don't like it, and you have Republican candidates wanting to get rid of it because it's ridiculous to just, again, impose an incredible tax that is going to filter down to the employers and ultimately the individuals.
Always.
So I think that's probably going to get shot down. Problem with all of this, and the way this law was written, they need the revenue from these penalties and taxes
Yes.
to pay for the law. If it, you know, doesn't, if they don't get the revenue, if the government doesn't get the revenue, they've got to find the revenue from someplace else. And what will that mean for everyone? In addition to our higher taxes, and in addition to high rates, we're going to pay high taxes. So at the end of the day, I think the
paying it
people
all
that
the
won,
way.
you know, were the people that really had difficulty getting insurance. Yes, they have insurance or the ability
Not
to.
everybody, though.
No, I
Not
agree. I
everybody.
know.
It was
I know.
40 million some that needed it, and not all the 40 million are covered today.
Well, no, 40 million didn't need it. 40 million was the number that they wanted it to get insured.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so that was
But
going
what
to
if
be the
they got
mandate.
9?
10.
10.
10,000 total, and their projection for this year at this time was to be over 20 million. They only have 10 million, so they're not going to get the penalties or anything that they you know, factored in.
Isn't it terrible that you have to have penalties to fund a program?
And the kids don't care.
I can't-
The young people don't care.
It's amazing.
Well, it is. I'm truly not what I had foreseen as being a great change. We still need to fix this whole condition, and you know, in terms of
don't
delivering
think-
how we deliver health care in the United
Right.
States. And I still, you know, we are seeing more and more HSA plans being put in place. Whether you're a large individual, you know, self-funded
I like them.
employer, HSA plans,
And
because
that's the way to
It's the
go.
way to go.
well, they're less costly than any other plan, and it does afford an individual to sock money away on a pre-tax basis
Yep.
and save for your own future.
And you can purchase services cheaper.
Glasses.
You just got to look around.
Tylenol.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's funny. It's funny because when
Yeah.
you do go look around, many times when you ask how much something costs, they don't know.
right.
They have no idea. They have to go research it.
And I want to thank my friends I'm going to give a plug, my former firm. I sold my C. Baker & Associates to Norton Financial Services. I gave my right-hand friend, seriously the smartest woman in the industry, Susan Davidson, a call because I wanted to know how they were faring with the employers, you know, having to deal with what we knew was coming for 2016, and they're right in the middle of the renewals for that contract year.
Right.
And she's the one who told me that prayers were answered because they changed a couple of things that were going to at least make this year palatable. Did it help rates so much? We're not talking about that. but it did help the way that it's going to be delivered to employees that work for employers who offer insurance. So
Sobering thoughts.
we need to not let this go. I mean, if we're going to be stuck with this law, this behemoth, gigantic law that doesn't make any sense in many ways, we need to continue to really try to fix the things that need to be fixed, and as a nation. And I'm hopeful that that happens if we're going to be stuck with it forever.
Write your congressperson and let them know what you think about this issue. This is a
Big problem.
This legislation is just amazing. It's so bizarre.
It is.
But on that note, we'll be right back with the last word. Welcome back. It's the last word on Smart and Savvy Unedited. Any takeaways from today, guys?
Sobering, depressing a little bit, issues that we dealt with. May go out and get a glass of wine after this. No, I'm just kidding.
Too early, Debbie.
It's 5 o'clock someplace, people. It's 5 o'clock someplace. But I do believe that sometimes we have to talk about issues that are unpleasant. We need to be more aware of what's out there. We need to be proactive. We need to deal with these things. I agree with Debbie. We need to make phone calls at times to our legislators, to our senators, federal, state. We don't affect change without dealing with it. And so we just can't put our blankie over our head and expect things to go away. So anybody, if you see a young child that just doesn't ring right, talk to a teacher, talk to a neighbor. And with insurances, we need to deal with this. And there's a time for some effective change because I think it's coming.
You know what's funny to me is that when you talk with legislators in Maine, they say that if they get a call from one person, it's amazing. If they get a call from 2 people, it's like mind-blowing because we just don't contact our legislators enough and tell them what we think. I mean, they say there's 1/3 of the people that just don't care about doing anything. There's 1/3 of the people that really care, but they know somebody else will do it. And there's the 1/3 of the people that actually do the work. Once in a while, you've got to put yourself in that latter third and be the one that makes the call or writes the letter
Hand note.
and let your legislator know what you think about something.
Yeah,
And they will listen to you, and it will sway their vote many times.
I agree.
I 100%.
Well, today I was listening to what Diane had said about sex trafficking doesn't affect a certain kind of child or a certain type of young woman or young man, but we were talking about women, that it reaches every socioeconomic,
Absolutely. Just like
demographic, thank
just
you.
like heroin does, yeah.
Yeah, and I have to say that, it really struck a chord with me
Yeah,
because
it hurts.
people look at me and no, I didn't get into, I wasn't ever having to deal with something as atrocious as what we just learned about.
Right.
Horrors.
But I do know that when you're a young woman growing up, there's not a single young woman I know, young girl, that doesn't go through a time in their life when they feel that insecurity. It doesn't matter what if they're the head cheerleader or the kid who just goes home and cries every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a very interesting kind of person to be able to detect in another human being that insecurity, and that's where this all stems from. And they're smart and they know how to do this. And it could be your child. It could be my friends, young girls.
Exactly.
And it just and it really struck a chord. I remember there was a time in my life really that I struggled with some of that when I was younger and searching
Absolutely.
and
We all
yeah
did.
and
We're
thank
too fat,
goodness.
we're too skinny.
Yeah.
We our skin color, our hair, our you name it, and we've all
wearing
been
the
there.
right shoes.
Right. My parents don't have enough money to buy me a second pair of
Right.
shoes.
I'm wearing the right shoes today, but they hurt.
They
I'm going to tell you right
certainly
now.
are the right pair of shoes.
You like your shoes, sister.
Yeah, I'm a shoe person. But anyway, that, you know, that's
Yeah.
what's so scary, and that's what I'm taking away
agree.
today.
I
is-
100% agree. How many times do we hear on TV that a child had contacted somebody on Facebook or whatever,
And went to
they've-
meet them.
and they've disappeared?
Yes.
And I can tell you right now, it could be a rich kid, it could be a poor kid, it could be
Right.
the kid right next door. Please, folks, you know, have your eyes and ears open. If you just see something that just doesn't feel right in your gut, you know, let's protect these young girls. They are just innocent little girls that know no better and are preyed upon.
So, so the phrase of the day is all girls' lives matter. All
Oh,
girls'
there you
lives
go.
matter.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back
Thank
next
you.
week.
Great.
We'll
Thank
see you guys next time on Smart and Savvy on Editing.